Oh hi, I'm just playing Paper Fortress 2 for the Nintendo Switch Cube, released in 2010. This game's a lot more violent than I remember. In my never-ending quest to cover all of Team Fortress 2's major updates, that is actually seeming more and more like it will have an ending, and an increasingly sad one at that, I've frequently been asked by, me, these major updates are all well and good with their bells and whistles and songs and dances, but what about the little guys, huh? What about the minor updates that ain't got no specialized page, To which I then reply, well, I have actually covered a couple. In particular, I just covered the history of the Cheetah's Lament in almost immaculate detail. But I suppose not every stray hat in TF2 can warrant an 8-minute and 40-second long video. I mean, they can, but I'm already on pace to finish this series on my deathbed, so it wouldn't hurt to speed things along just a tad. Because yes, that's right folks, today we were covering not 1, not 4, but 3 minor updates in today's video. Specifically, the Community Contribution Trilogy. That all took place roughly around the same time that I'm up to in the timeline, so that's good enough for Steve. But what the heck-aroonie are the Community Contribution Updates? On January 13th of 2010, the TF2 team released this blog post and a brand new website alongside it to introduce Contribute, an official site where creators can directly contribute any nifty little items they have created for TF2 straight into the devs' cerebral cortexes, so that they can potentially have the glowing hand of Gabe gently grasp their creations and delicately insert them into the game like I did with your mother last night. And this was quite a big thing for the community, as up until this point, anybody who made custom models and creations for TF2 was subject to putting them on sites like Game Banana, a site for adding cosmetic mods to many games and your one-stop shop for adding the, cock mod. Wow. So this was a game changer at the time. Valve wanted your creations front and center, and this open arms acceptance of community-made thingies would remain a prominent part of TF2's ongoing development, even to this day. In fact, on this day, a button was added on the official blog that remains there even now, but it looks a bit different now. Well, yes, as you can probably surmise and have likely already pointed out in some regard either to yourself or in the comments, in late 2011, about 2 years later, Steam launched the aptly titled Steam Workshop, which has become an even more direct way of contributing items to not only TF2, but tons of other games now as well. And this version even allows your fellow man to see them too. Oh, how romantic. It's interesting that they did indeed update both the blog and the Contribute site to now prominently feature Steam Workshop rather than their original methods. But the creation of the Steam Workshop interestingly also marks somewhat of an end to the Community Contribute updates, as after the workshop was added, community items started getting implemented so frequently in various forms through even major updates that these minor updates that we're covering today were quietly ceased at only the 3rd volume. But I'm getting way ahead of myself here. I should explain exactly what they were, if it wasn't already obvious. You see, after the Contribute site was made, Valve would release some of the items contributed in a series of 3 minor updates, aptly titled the Community Contribution Updates. Now, while none of them were prominently featured in a major update fashion, they were all considered major to the community themselves, as these were the first ever non-major updates to add items such as brand new weapons and hats that weren't just the Cheetah's Lament and Bill's hat. You see, suddenly with these updates, we all realized that the TF2 team could literally drop a brand new weapon that could completely change the meta on a whim. No build up needed, no schmancy update page, just a quaint little patch with some brand new junk. So without further ado, let's get into the Community Contribution. On March 18th, 2010, the first ever one of these suddenly dropped with a charming post signaling the future of TF2 to come, as this update added a whopping 12 new items to the game, 9 new hats, 1 for each class, and 3 brand new weapons with completely unique stats. But to start off, I'll go over the hats. They were the Troublemaker's Tossle Cap, the Killer's Kabuto, the representative of the Brain Slug Party, the Hustler's Hallmark, the Hound Dog, the Hot Rod, the item that accentuates my lisp, the Shooter's Solar Topi, and finally the Magistrate's Mullet. And as you can tell, they weren't messing around here when they were picking these hats. They put their best foot forward for releasing some of the best and most iconic hats in the game here. Well, at least in my opinion. I mean, how can't you love the hound dog? Here's even a video of me crafting it back in the day and doing the iconic mouse movements to indicate my glee. Oh, thank you very much. Marking the very first time this ever happened in TF2, and paving the exciting way for many more years of this to come. But if these hats were so amazing, can you even imagine what the weapons we got were? Well, this is them! I mean, look, these are all fine weapons, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't personally hope that their additions would be as game-changing as I had previously envisioned. I mean, the home wrecker here is pretty damn nice, something I still frequently use to this day. Although, its iconic defining feature of removing sappers wasn't actually added until the 7th of May later that year, a full 50 days later after its addition. Yep, that's right, when it says 100% damage against buildings, it only meant engineer buildings, of which its use at the time was, questionable, to say the least. Next up is the Delicacy Bar, an item that I didn't understand how to use for the longest time for some reason. Not much to say about this one, other than at one point it used to toss medium health packs instead of small ones, and it also used to use the sandwich voice lines, which I found so hilarious at the time that I even made a stop motion Gmod animation about it.
Belongers! Oh, jeez! Oh! What? Belongers! Ah! Oh, don't run! It's just ham!
Finally, we have the Pain Train, which is a board with a nail in it.
Ah! He's got a board with a nail in it!
Which also has had little to no changes to it after all these years. The most notable one I could mention is that he used to drink the damn thing when you taunted with it.
Nice.
Now, while these weapons weren't exactly breaking the game over their respective knees, either now or then, it didn't stop everyone from firmly grasping them in every game possible. Well, that was, of course, if you even owned them. As because they weren't added in a major update, this was the first time weapons weren't available through achievement milestones, meaning that in order to get them you either had to pray to the god of random drops, or pray to the god of random crafts. You see, while they did end up getting their own unique crafting recipes further down the line, at first players had to resort to the random gamble that was crafting class and weapon tokens together. That was about it for this update. Might not seem like much to us now, but believe me, back then getting an update like this was like Christmas morning. Well, actually, I guess if we did get an update like this today, we'd probably be just as excited, if not even more so. Oh, and one more thing. As these were the first ever community contributed items into the game, this update of course brought along the unique item quality of the glorious green self-made style. An item quality many of us can only dream of getting. Although personally, I've actually seen a few people with their self-made items in game before over my many years of playing. Have you guys seen any? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, now on to community contribution. On May 20th, 2010, a mere 63 days later, we were suddenly washed away by the second of these player-made updates. This time, we were generously gifted 13 new items. However, 11 of these were hats, and only 2 were weapons this time. Regardless, again, let's look at our new headwear haul first. We have the Whoopee Cap, the Sergeant's Drill Hat. Pyro this time got 2 new items, the Vintage Merryweather and an item that wasn't even actually a hat, the Whiskered Gentleman. There was also the Tippler's Tricorn, the Heavy Duty Rag, the Safe and Sound. The Medic also received 2 items, being the Gentleman's Gatsby and Z Goggles, which do nothing. And finally, the Sniper got the Bloke's Bucket Hat and the Spy got the Frenchman's Beret. Not a bad haul if I do say so myself. Granted, there are a few less than memorable head toppers here, but I think they more than make up for it with items such as Z Goggles and the Tippler's Tricorn, which I believe was the first item to go towards the Pirate Demo Man theme. But how about our 2 new killing tools? Well, first up we have the Scotsman's Bloody Skull Cutter. Now this was a must-have for demo nights everywhere, even if it was still a relatively new breed of subclass. While the speed penalty was tough, nobody could ignore the giant delicious damage buff it came with. Which is interesting because it seems like these days the meta has changed a bit in favour of speed buffing items over many other things. And I feel that the old Skull Cutter has fallen out of favour a bit since as a result. Although curiously enough, even though its heyday was during its release, the speed reduction was originally applied at all times when you had this damn thing equipped. It wasn't changed to only being applied when it was actually active until December 22nd of 2014, which was a whopping 4 years, 7 months, and 2 days later, which is incredible to think about, especially considering that that date that I just mentioned was 8 years ago, so I don't know, time or something. Anyway, our second and final weapon of this update was the good old Tribal Man Shiv. Now this thing was a favourite of mine, and many others for a long while when this was added, because if you have been keeping track of all the updates so far, this was the very first unlockable melee weapon for the sniper. Nobody really cared what its stats were, just the novelty of a new sniper melee kept it remaining on every sniper's back pocket for months and months to come. But for what it's worth, when it comes to the stats, the most notable thing to mention is that it used to bleed for 8 seconds, whereas now it's only 6. And it used to only be a 35% damage penalty, whereas now it's up to 50. Personally, I feel like the old Shiv has just been outclassed by a fair few other sniper melee options now, but I'll always remember using it every single day. Until the Bushwhacker came out, and then I never touched it again. Hey guys, it's me, future editing Liam here. I just wanted to interject real quick to talk a little bit further about the Tribal Man Shiv here. I really wanted to emphasize that this weapon used to be good, back when it was the only option available for the sniper other than the defaults. But these days, it is really, seriously, viciously outclassed, because getting footage for this thing has been an absolute nightmare. The fact that this weapon has a 50% damage penalty is an overwhelmingly harsh penalty for an already underwhelming weapon. Seriously, 9 times out of 10 when I try to use this, it just doesn't work. I get no kills, the bleed does nothing. I honestly think I got a bleed kill with this thing like 2% of the time of the 6 hours of recording I have of this thing. And the few kills I actually managed to get with it at all were more lucky than my Huntsman shots, which are already extremely lucky to begin with. So I just really wanted to emphasize that despite how it was back then, it does not stand up in modern day TF2 and is outclassed in every single way possible by every other sniper melee. Don't use the Tribal Man Shiv. Holy shit, this weapon sucks. I hate it. I hate it now, okay? I used to like it, now I hate it. Sorry, I just needed to interject with this because, oh my god. Wow. Look, I'm clearly not a sniper main, and Lord knows I hardly know what I'm talking about when it comes to in-depth weapon discussion and analysis at the best of times. So if you want a more coherent explanation on why the Tribal Man Shiv sucks so much that isn't just some raving Australian hooting and hollering for a measly minute and 12 seconds, I recommend this video by Fish on a Stick Gaming. He has a far better explanation on the topic than I can ever concoct. But anyway, that's it for this update. The only other notable thing that was updated during this day was that this is apparently when they added that strange extra room I was weirded out by on Pipeline. Anyway, on to the community. The third and final update of the Public People was released on the 7th of April 2011, which is only a mere 322 full days since the last one, which is a while actually. Well, at least back in those days, of course. Those are rookie numbers in today's standards of hopelessly waiting for a Team Fortress branded update. But luckily, this sub-series of updates was worth the wait, as it went out with a bang, with a whopping 11 new items. And they were all cosmetics. Oh, and one of them was actually made by Valve, so 10 new actual community-made items. Well, let's take a look at these hotly hat-anticipated headgear. We have the Honcho's headgear, the Sight for Sore Eyes, the Regulator, the Big Country, the Googly Gazer, and Teddy Roosevelt, all for Engineer. And the Valve-made hat, the Professor's Peculiarity, was also made for him too. A lot of Engineer favoritism here, but I mean, rightly so. Just look at the little guy. Medic got the Grim hat and the Medic's Mountain Cap. Spy got the Charmer's Chapeau, and the Demo Man, Medic, and Spy all got the Private Eye to share. Again, there are some bangers sprinkled in this batch here and there, but I gotta admit, these really aren't what you might have hoped for the final installment of the series. I mean, even my inbuilt nostalgia bias isn't really doing much for me here. At least that's my opinion. Perhaps these items really aren't the bees of knees, or perhaps it's because by the time this final set came out almost a full year after the second issue, we already had about 135 cosmetic items by this point. Yes, really. Once the first batch came out, tons more followed at a rapid pace, quite literally, at the drop of a hat. It's possible that due to the sheer number of hats and cosmetics the game had at this point, that the sheer novelty of owning such cosmetics had worn off. At this point in time, owning a cosmetic item was really no biggie. Just about everyone had at least the Givers by this stage, so this final batch was quite honestly just another addition to the pile. And, well, that's just about it. That's all that was really notable that dropped during this update, but it was still a fun ride while it lasted, I suppose. It was, and still is, exciting to randomly get a content drop update, even if it is fairly underwhelming. I think we can all relate to that feeling, at the very least. And that just about dang well covers it. A footnote in the vast history of TF2 updates. A special little series that showcased the community's fantastic skills. And of course, while this minor update series is dead, this whole shindig paved the way for TF2's future, where most cosmetic items, weapons and maps were primarily made by the community, just submitted through a different source and now highlighted in proper major updates. I really do enjoy covering these minor updates. I just enjoy video game update history as a whole, really. And I have many more plans for the future, including of course the return of the major updates, but also maybe other games? We'll see. Anyway, that's the video. I have been Ihasnotomato, and remember to always look both ways before robbing your local deli. Bye!
Hey, look, I know it's at the end of the video, man, but what's with the puppet?
What puppet?